I absolutely love the ISU-152, but what does the Chinese version of this vehicle have to offer in World of Tanks console? And that is exactly what we're looking at in today's video, and hopefully you guys do enjoy, because this tank is actually one of the funnest tanks that I've played in a long time. And this is of course the WZ-111-1GFT. This is the tier 8 tank destroyer that is essentially the tech tree version. It is a tank that I really did enjoy, and it essentially offers you 440 alpha damage. It has some really good attributes, and that's what I really like about it. It has some level of armor. I mean, it's not particularly amazing, but when you can reload so quickly and deal so much damage in one shot, then yeah, you can have some really crazy games. And you're seeing here getting pretty lucky with the rolls. 580 on the first roll and 540 on the second one. But will we see a continuous stream of damage within this game? Yes, we will. And that's what I think that this tank does really well. It has 3 different guns, so you have a 440 alpha or a 390 at the beginning, and then you go up in caliber and also damage, and of course you decrease in reload as the caliber goes higher, because they need to form some kind of balance. But the key thing about this tank is that it is a fast firing tank destroyer that's capable of dealing a lot of damage per shell respective to the reload time. So when you're coming up against a lot of tanks that are in the game, I mean even things like the J Panther for example, they're going to find it a little bit of a struggle to come up against you, because even though they have 490 alpha on the top gun of the J Panther 2, they don't have the 540 that you get with the top gun of this thing, and that's why you're able to see so many shots of damage in this game, and how we've already picked up 2,900 damage within the first little bit of this game starting. But my main problem is that we are definitely not in the greatest of positions in this tank, and we are definitely not in the greatest position right now, even if we are bouncing a few rounds off of tanks like the Leopard. Now, I do try and get rid of this Dragon, so we hit him once, I'm thinking, oh, I'm definitely out of the game right now, there's no way I can get away, but somehow we bounce off of the back end side, so, you know, getting a little bit lucky with the RNG, but we continue the retreat. I have no idea how many more tanks haven't been taken out. It was a real shame that we got hit by artillery. Remember, this is Chinese, so the engine deck is just very juicy, and I'm surprised we didn't get ammo racked by getting hit by an artillery, but you know, it is what it is. But the ammo rack of the Chinese tanks is usually pretty bad. It's like the British. I mean, you get hit in the lower plate and you often get ammo racked in these vehicles, which actually sucks so much. But you know, hey ho, we've got to make the best of a bad situation, and this is definitely a bad situation. We're down 7 tanks, which is horrible to say the least, because remember, when you've got the alpha damage that this does, and you have pretty much lackluster armor, I mean, you're not really bouncing anything in this thing. Even if you can bounce a few things, yeah, you just don't really have the opportunity to do a whole lot. But unfortunately for us, there is very little we can do at this stage in the game. There are 2 Tiger 131s who are just being a pain, and unfortunately, because of the premium round penetration of the Tiger 131, we do get taken out. And this is the problem with playing these non-turreted tank destroyers that rely on somewhat having a little bit of armor, but don't necessarily have enough to be able to bounce reliably, and then don't have a turret on top of that, making them slightly more inflexible. But if you can get them working and you can keep firing, like you may have seen with the ISU video that we did recently, you can have unbelievable results. And I think we picked up 8.6 thousand damage in that tier 8 tank destroyer, which is a crazy game, and I think it was the highest XP I've ever had in any vehicle. I think we got 3,000 base XP in the ISU 152. But maybe you want to go and check out this video or that video after this one. But of course, this one we did manage to pick up 4,215 damage, which was a good game in this tank. I mean, it was definitely okay, and we actually did nearly double the damage of any other tank in the game, but we just got a few teammates that did absolutely nothing. and unfortunately we do lose. But let's jump into the next one and I'll catch you there. So the next game that we do have is on Vineyards, and Vineyards being the map that I always like to play when I'm in my tank destroyers, and you kind of rely on your team, however, when you do play this map, and you know what it's always like, and like you saw in the previous game, relying on your team is often not the best idea, and it does actually suck. But the problem is that this tank, although it has a very nice gun, doesn't have the most hit points. I mean, 1200 is okay, but at tier 8, you know, it's nowhere near the heavy tank, so you have to make use of being stealthy, use your camo and your view range to outspot opponents and deal damage in that way, and avoid damage from not getting spotted. But what we do always on Vineyards when playing in these sorts of tanks is spot the cross of people trying to cross over to the hill area over to the left. Now, I didn't want to get spotted by the T50-2, so I was a little bit careful as to trying to poke this guy, but what we wanted to do was get him out of the game. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to hit him, which kind of sucks, but you know, it is what it is. When you're up here, however, you do have to be a little bit careful because you've got tanks like the Scorpion G that can go for you, and of course we don't manage to pen him. We only hit the tracks, which is lovely against the basically no armoured Scorpion G. Now we're going for a shot on this AMD because we want to get rid of all of these light tanks out of the game, and unfortunately for him we do manage to take him out. So a nice little 95 damage, probably the least damage you can probably do in this vehicle, considering the high alpha that it does get. But you know, we are what we are, and we're just trying to get as much damage as possible, and in doing that we managed to pick up the Scorpion G. So on Vineyards, what do you want to do in this sort of situation where you've kind of got not a lot of team support over this side? Because when you don't get any team support over this side, because literally 5 or 6 of your vehicles are sat in one square at J and K 8 and 9, because you know, camping up there is really good to help your team. You know, you really have to work quite hard on this flank to maintain it and not get YOLO'd by about 1 million tanks. And of course, when they are up in that spot, they never seem to actually turn to look at the field where the majority of the enemy team are going to be pushing, and of course where they're going to be trying to take you out from. So you have to be a little bit careful. The amount of times where I've tried to rely on the people on the hill where the majority of my team are right now, yeah, it just never usually ends up very well, and they always end up having terrible games. So I have no idea why people go up there, to be honest with you. And I think it is a terrible position for 99% of games, but you know, that's just my opinion. Either way, with 1250 damage, I'm feeling like we aren't doing enough, and in this sort of the time zone within the game, I would have hoped to at least be on about 2,500 damage, so we're kind of lacking in that department. But I can't really push on my own in the game because, you know, if I push on my own, I've only got a tank destroyer who I'd have to rely on, which is an SU-152 or an ISU-152. I'm not sure at this moment in time. But of course, if he misses, or if it's a light tank that manages to find us, getting around the side of this is not going to be fun. We're going to get taken out pretty quickly. So I don't want to YOLO in just yet. And of course, when we've got a heavy tank, I mean, it's pretty slow, it's going to trundle along, it's not really going to be able to come forward, and you never know with your teammates, are they actually going to follow you? Sometimes it's good when you ping them to say like, oh, follow me, or like, help me, and some people will, but obviously that is completely down to them and their play style within the game. So I always like to kind of play solo, I guess, or at least mentally wise, play solo, because you will never have to kind of rely on your team that way. But with the Tiger 2 now getting spotted, Sir Die-A-Lot, hopefully he'll be getting taken out within this game by us, and maybe he'll get taken out again. But what we're doing here is, I didn't want to go up on the ridge because we are spotted, and you know what that tank is going to do. So I wait a little bit and we plow around into the inner tracks, not only tracking him but dealing damage, which is the perfect combination. But unfortunately for us, the reload of the tank isn't quite fast enough, which kind of makes you want to think, well, is it worth playing this tank, or should you play the ISU because you get more alpha? You don't really have to wait a whole lot longer for that extra alpha, but you definitely don't get the mobility that this tank has. It's a little more inflexible in the ISU 152. It doesn't feel as responsive, and the accuracy is definitely not as good. So getting assistance damage in the ISU is just basically Not impossible, but a lot harder, so you can't really rely on that. But in this game, we're not trying to do that. We're literally just trying to find opponents. Now, I know the Tiger 2's pushing up, but the problem is I don't know where the rest of the enemy vehicles are. Are they over on this flank? Are they trying to push? We have no idea. So I'm kind of sticking back, waiting to see what happens. And with medium tanks in the game that haven't been spotted in a long time, I have no idea if they're just going to sneak up from behind us and get a few shots. But we do spot a Löwe in the middle who's pushing just on the other side of the train tracks, and we're trying to find a good spot to be able to hit this Löwe in. And so I do manage to see the outline, so I just pre-aim at the spot where I could hit him, and we're basically just waiting for the Löwe to now pull back from that spot. You never know if he's going to, but we do manage to connect around, which is nice, and of course get up a little bit of extra damage. So exactly what you want. This is the sort of thing you should be doing, making sure that even if there are tanks that are in opposite directions to where you are looking, that at least you're being able to kind of aim on one target, get some damage, because you know there's a Tiger 2 behind me. I'm not going to forget about it, and of course he's going to pop up at some point. But if I have no chance of hitting him, if I don't have to YOLO him, or I don't have to lose any health at this moment in time, then there's no point in turning around, unless I think that, you know, this guy is going to suddenly pop out of nowhere and get a few shots on us. Now, we do spot the UDES 14 Alt 5, which is nice because what we need to do is get rid of him pretty quick. Now, the UDES Alt 5 doesn't really have a ton of armor, and especially when he shows us his backside, so we plow around into him. The Ariete tries to track us, which is not a bad idea. I mean, this tank, if you do manage to track it, is basically useless since you can get around the side of it. It can't turn if it doesn't have its tracks on. But this is the typical case of when your team don't actually come down off of the hill. I mean, they basically still sat up there. There's a medium tank still up there, and unfortunately for us, the Ariete has managed to get around the side, and he's probably fully reloaded at this point, so he's got all of the rounds in his clip. So I'm trying to angle for the back, and of course we managed to hit the Tiger 2. I can't really be, well, it's not that I can't be bothered to turn around, but I do actually aim at the Tiger 2 since I'm not going to be able to turn around in the time that it takes for me to get him. But if we can do one of our team something good, then I can take out the Tiger 2. Unfortunately, the Ariete is not getting farmed too much. The artillery does hit him, the medium does actually hit him in the end, but we do have a damaged engine because, of course, getting set on fire in a Chinese tank, and then we do get taken out. Now, had we not got set on fire, I'm sure we could have actually won against this guy. So, I mean, luck may have been on his side. Maybe I should have pushed the Tiger 2 earlier in the game, like we said. But, of course, we had a full health M48 Ram Panzer that's still in base. He has done a decent amount of damage, I guess, 2,500. But remember, it's pointless damage if you've done it at this late stage in the game and all you've been doing is literally farming people that are YOLOing across fields to take out the rest of your team. I mean, it's not real reflective damage. And unfortunately, you know, he's probably going to do this in the next game he plays. And from me to you guys, seriously, do not camp in JK8 because it is absolutely pointless for 99% of players. If you're sat there in your tank destroyer at the early game to get some early damage, then yeah, maybe it's worth it. But if you're in the late stage of the game, it is absolutely not worth it. You should be moving and actually doing something according to the game you're playing. Now, I don't know what the Ram Panzer's doing here, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Am I expecting my team to do anything? No, I fully accepted that maybe I should have actually gone for the Tiger 2. We would have taken him out most likely, and then I could have dealt with whatever it was like the Ariete, and then we probably may have been able to win. But, you know, that's ifs and maybes, and we didn't do that, unfortunately, and maybe that's my bad. And yeah, unfortunately, we don't manage to win again, having done 4,000 damage. So this tank, definitely full review, is that yes, it can be good, but a lot of the times you don't have the carrying capacity, you're not fast enough to be able to mobilise yourself all around the map, you don't have a turret, and you don't have the alpha damage to really give a middle finger to anyone that YOLOs you. But, I mean, if you can lock people down, if you're good at staying and positioning, then you'll know that this tank is very, very powerful. But unfortunately, having done 4,400 damage and 1,700 assists, getting a first class badge on a loss with more XP than a lot of the enemy team for winning, and when I lost, yeah, it was just a little bit triggering, but there you go. I mean, I should have just played better. But other than that, I hope you guys did enjoy this little review of the Tier 8 Chinese tank destroyer, and hopefully you join me back tomorrow where we've got a very, very interesting video, and I hope you do enjoy that too. See you there. Goodbye.